Hi there, it's Amy Donaldson with Amy D Coaching, and today we're going to talk about dual agency or disclosed limited agency, which is often the topic of heated debate. Does it create more liability? Are you doing a good job for your clients? So this is something that that has a lot of moving parts. So it really depends on the setup. In general, I am not a fan of dual agency, and I'm going to tell you why. It's because of the level of customer care that you'd be bringing to whomever the second party is, which is usually the buyer. So in some cases, I think dual agency is fine, and I'll get to that towards the end of the video, so be sure to watch till the end. So here's the setup of how it usually occurs. You have a listing, you're hosting your own open house, a buyer walks in and they say, I love it, I'd like to write an offer. Great. And this is where you're stuck going, okay, do I just represent them? Do I refer them to someone else? And there's actually a third option. I'm going to tell you why you don't want to represent them. You already have a relationship with the seller. You do not have a relationship with the buyer. Odds are you're not going to go through the process and have a proper consultation, find out what they're looking for, so you don't even know where this house ranks on in terms of how ideally suited it is for them, or in terms of how well it fits within their budget and all of their criteria, and the things that you would know if you had had an ongoing relationship with them. So right off the bat, you're not doing them as good of a job at, the level of client care is imbalanced. So if you get involved in a dual agency, you have equal fiduciary to both parties, but emotionally and psychologically, you already have a relationship with one party and not the other. So, and if things were to go wrong down the road and they were to claim, I didn't feel like she held up her fiduciary, I think most people would agree with the buyer on that you didn't represent them as well as representing the buyer or the seller. So that is why you don't want to do dual agency. Now, most realtors think the only other option is to get another realtor involved, which A, is going to reduce the amount of money that you make, and B, potentially that realtor could come in with problems. And a lot of people feel like it's just Murphy's Law. They always do. Well, guess what? It's not Murphy's Law. It's actually a much deeper, primal need. We all want to bring value to a situation. And if someone, with the point that they're walking into the situation, we've already got a deal put together, we've already got the price and all the terms, we just need them to write it up because I don't want the liability of dual agency. They're not coming in feeling like they're bringing any value to the situation. So whether they're aware of it or not, and usually they're not, it's just on a subconscious level, and it comes from a really good place. In order to bring value, they need to find problems and points of negotiation. They need to win on the repair addendum, or if the appraisal comes in low, they need, and the reason is they're wanting to bring value to the situation. They don't want to just, write a contract and pick up a huge check. Sure, they'll pay you a referral fee, so they don't get the full commission, but they don't want to just write something up and get paid. I mean, I know on a certain level, it's like, well, it sounds pretty nice. Most decent people want to earn their pay. They want to bring value. So that's the problem is, obviously they're not bringing value if they end up killing the deal, if they end up creating problems, but that's where that dynamic is coming from. That's why it's not Murphy's Law, and that's why, in my opinion, grabbing another realtor at this point, you're not really doing a good fiduciary for your seller client. So it's like, wait a minute. All right, Amy, what are we supposed to do here? The best option is you let that buyer represent themselves. They're off looking at houses by themselves. They feel like they represent themselves. That's essentially what they're doing. That is the most appropriate and most honest solution to this problem, and it is the least often recognized. So what you say when they say, we want to write an offer on this house, go, great, I'm happy to help you with that. So I represent the seller, and I'm assuming you just want to represent yourself, and they're going to say, yep, I don't have a realtor, and go, great, now I'm happy, I've got all the forms, I can write it up for you. So in Oregon, the agency disclosure is at the very top of the first page. So you write your seller's name, you write yourself as representing seller only, buyer represents themselves. And then we also have an additional form for agency disclosure. And we do still need to give them the Oregon Real Estate Agency pamphlet because it's the first substantial conversation of real estate. Now, every state, the paperwork is going to be slightly different on how to do that. But you guys, I trust that you know in your state how to do that. For the realtor who represents the buyer, just put nothing. And you can go ahead and fill out the paperwork. If the paperwork needs to be filled out, the buyer doesn't know how to do it, they don't have access to the forms, you are writing it up as a representative of the seller, and you just make that very clear. The majority of the time, the seller, when you say you represent yourself, they go, yep, I represent myself. Now, if at some point they go, no, I really want a realtor, I want someone to represent me, at that point, obviously bring someone else in. That is what they want. But I would say to use that as a last resort. So now I'm going to tell you this scenario where I do, where there is a scenario where dual representation is going to happen and there's kind of no way out of it. And this is where, if you're like me and you utilize the buyer broker agreements, right? So I have all my buyer clients on an exclusive agency with me. So I have buyers that have signed an agreement that we are working together. Those are our clients on a document. We talk about the buyer broker agreement in some other videos. So if then I have a listing, so that person's under contract, and one of my buyer clients wants to purchase this listing. In that scenario, dual agency is going to, I'm a disclosed limited agent to both parties. Now here's the difference in this scenario. This is not a stranger who just walked into my open house. This is someone I already have a relationship with. This is someone I already have a relationship with. So in this scenario, I am much better equipped to do an excellent job for both parties. Both parties have had a proper consultation. And in this case, I now need to remember everything I know about this person is confidential. Everything I know about this person is confidential. We're just going to navigate and broker the deal. But if you've got a buyer who wants to buy and a seller who wants to sell, you can do this. Just remember, you've got a fiduciary to both parties.